Well folks, this is the Aldi Ferrex soldering iron. I started off all enthusiastic about this iron. It's got some interesting technology in it, but sadly it doesn't quite cut the mustard. Let's find out why. The iron itself comes with a stand, which is quite nice. Also comes with some solder. I expect that solder's probably lead-free solder, which would suck, but it is what it is. And obviously a USB-C charging cable. So on the back of the unit you can see a USB port there. So there's actually not a bad weight to this device. It's got a rubberized handle and it has an on-off switch here. You have to hold down that on-off switch for about 5 seconds in order to activate the iron itself. And once you've held it down, you can see that the iron is now active. So let's have a look at the tip on this iron then. It is just a round tip, but I'm sure with a file we could probably make that into a chisel tip if we wanted to. I couldn't see any replacement tips for this iron anywhere, so once that tip is cream crackered, might be time to just buy yourself another soldering iron. Well, at 15 quid, it's almost doable. Let's see how it performs. So here's an interesting feature. Clearly I haven't read the instruction manual. I've been waiting about 2 minutes for this to warm up, and it's not warmed up. And the reason why is because I haven't put my thumb on this little pressure pad here. So as you can see, if I put my thumb on the pressure pad, the lights light up and it shows you what you're soldering. The interesting thing is I hadn't been keeping my thumb on that pressure pad. And I can see smoke coming from the tip, and there we go, solder is melting. Fantastic, look at that. So that's really quite interesting. So even though the iron is turned on, you can see by the lights here, nothing happens until you touch this little capacitive touch sensor on the side of the iron here. Now this is all good for right-handed people. Left-handed people, I guess it sort of works. So you use your finger instead of your thumb. The light on it is quite bright, so that's nice to see. The warm-up time on this iron is really quite quick. It was all of about 15-20 seconds. I'm quite impressed with the warm-up time. Let's go ahead and twist some cables together here, and let's see how this soldering iron does with a medium-sized thermal mass. We're definitely at the temperature where solder is melting, which is good. So let's go ahead and tin up these cables. So even on a full charge, this iron is really struggling with cables that are this thick. That's a little bit disappointing. You can see here it's just not getting hot enough to be able to penetrate properly. And I'm pouring solder into this as best I can. And you can just see that it's really, the solder is just not melting. The thermal mass of 3 little cables, it's just not doing the do. I'm sorry, Aldi, I don't think you're going to get a very good review on this one. This is just turning into Mr. Blobby Goes to Town. I might have to go and get a proper soldering iron that is also battery powered and show you the difference. But yeah, this is just not, the solder is not flowing into the cable. The flux core's not properly made. It's just not doing the do, is it? Right, let's try a single piece of cable. Alright folks, here we go. So we're up to temperature apparently, and we're now just soldering a single piece of cable. And yeah, we can tin, and you can see the solder flowing there. So there we go, we're now successfully tinning a single piece of cable. And that actually doesn't look too bad. But 3 pieces of cable, sadly, this iron just cannot crack. Let's try it one more time. As soon as I touch the 3, it just soldered itself to the, it's just not coping with that, is it? That's disappointing. That's a that really is a bit of a shame. It's, to be honest, it's just turning things into pure muck. Having not succeeded with 3 pieces of cable, let's try 2 pieces of cable and see how we get on. So the iron is now up to temperature. We've got a consistent green light on the iron, and sadly 2 pieces of cable are just too much for this Aldi Ferrex soldering iron, 4 volt. Sadly, Aldi, I've got a feeling that this is gonna go back to Aldi. I'm glad I kept the receipt. This is just honestly useless. I'm gonna have to get another soldering iron in a second and show you how a reasonable soldering iron should solder. This is, if any of you guys are having problems with an Aldi soldering iron, it's just down to the fact that it's underpowered. This isn't soldering. This is just making a mess. We're getting there with 2 cables, but this is just not really doing the do. Look at that. Okay, it took forever to solder 2 pieces of cable together. That was just wrong. And to be fair, you know, that's a decent electrical connection now, but really that took forever. All right, ladies and gents, so I have here a battery powered soldering iron. This is a soldering iron that's actually USB-C powered. It connects into a USB-C port on the back of here. What I've done is I've plugged it into a power tool battery. This is a Makita equivalent power tool battery. All right, so there's a lot of battery there, this iron has been set to 310 degrees, and you can change the temperature of the iron. Let me show you how this iron performs compared to the Aldi soldering iron. And look at that, you can see that solder starting to flow into the cable, into the joints quite quickly. Well, that solder is molten now. It's not looking like a massive, great big glob of solder anymore. It's actually penetrating those cables. And there we have it. Okay, it is a bit blobby. We'll just get rid of that blob there. But there we go, that's how a soldering iron should work. Now, one thing you might notice is the joint is a little bit grey. And the reason behind that is because we're using lead-free solder. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to introduce a little bit of leaded solder. This is very fine solder for electronic circuits, and we'll just flow that over the joint here, and with a little bit of luck you'll see that that joint is now looking beautifully silver, and everything is so much better with a decent soldering iron. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got to be honest, with the Aldi soldering iron you're going to struggle to solder 2 cables together. Admittedly, these are, you know, maybe sort of 12 strand cables, but they're not huge by any stretch of the imagination. This just is not going to do the job for me. Looking at the manual here to see if there's any temperature adjustments that we can do on the soldering iron, but generally speaking, no, it doesn't look like there are. So some of the cute things that are interesting about this iron then, it reaches a temperature of 480 degrees centigrade. So as you could see earlier, this guy was only set to 310 centigrade, and it still did a better job. I could have turned that temperature up if I'd have wanted to. The other thing that's really quite interesting is we have a 3-year warranty on this iron. I'll tell you why that is, because if you do buy it and you don't return it, you'll stick it in a drawer and you'll never use it. So I'm sure they'll be quite confident of their 3-year warranty. Yeah, sorry guys. I don't mean to slate Aldi. We get some fantastic cheap food and they make some really good tools as well, but this one isn't one of them. So I couldn't help myself but stuff this all over the internet, on Twitter, on my phone. Do not buy the Aldi 4-volt soldering iron. It's utterly useless. Its ability to maintain a good tip temperature sadly means you end up with solder joints that look like Mr. Blobby came to town. Remember Noel Edmonds? Anyway, video this weekend to debunk. Thanks to Taz for making me aware of it. Cheers and beers, folks. Sorry, Ferrex, this one's a big X from me.